Hello, and welcome to Levels Plus Whenever episode 113, where we're gonna go through my top 100 NES games and narrow it down to 25. Quite a lofty aspiration there. I also wanted to spend a brief moment talking about what the channel's plans are for October. So this weekend, you're going to get 2 Levels Plus Whenever episodes. You're going to get this one, and the 114, which will be talking about the Dreamcast, and narrowing a top 25-ish list to a top 10. After that, we're going to take a little break from Levels Plus Whenever to do Levels Plus Plays for some mood-appropriate LPs of various horror/Halloweeny vibe games. I've already recorded Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, 9 hours of it, which will probably be condensed maybe to 8 by the time all the editing is done. But that'll be a nice big long playthrough. And I want to get into the new Dead Space remake. New as in I haven't played it. A quick update on Resident Evil 4 remake. I did record an episode 13, but I didn't turn the audio on, and there was an extremely loud blue jay like through half of the footage. So I was going to re-record it, but I forgot that I saved over the old one as part of the process. And so I am going to have to replay the entire game to get back to that point to continue it. So we're going to take a break from that. I feel like I also kind of got RE4'd out finally after playing it like 9 times. And the recording process has kind of slowed that down. But I do know I want to play Dead Space Remake, and there's a couple other things that I'm thinking about that would be appropriate for the season to go through. So look forward to that. But for now, we'll go ahead and jump into episode 113 and the NES. What's the best stuff? So the NES, my first platform, I got it when I was 4. I still have my original console. It doesn't work anymore, but this is the system, I think, outside of maybe the Switch, because I played so many Switch games, and the, like, in Nintendo 64, maybe, because I played a lot of N64 games, that I could do 100 games. So, I think the best place to start is starting the cut. I don't want to sort anything. I don't want to start putting stuff at the top. I want to start eliminating stuff. And we'll start with Nintendo. We'll go with Nintendo first. We'll get to a top 50 once I get through all of the various third parties. And then we will reformat this. We'll get it to 50 if it's not there yet. And then we'll get it down to 25. Alright, so with Nintendo, games that I don't think would make a top 50. I think the 3 Mario games are going to definitely be in a top 50. Wario's Wood's not. I think it's a perfectly fine little game, but it is not one that I would want in a top 50. So that'll be our first cut. Wrecking Crew, I have some affection for. I'm not going to cut it immediately, but it's going to probably be on the second string of cuts if I need to do that. NES Open, I don't like. I think it's actually worse than Golf. Mario Brothers, this is not the best port of it, and I'm going to just automatically eliminate all the Donkey Kongs as well. Donkey Kong Jr. I'm going to keep. because that's the one that I think is the good one out of all of Nintendo's arcade ports. It has all the levels. It's pretty close to what the arcade one was. Zelda is absolutely staying. Metroid's staying. Kirby's staying. Kid Icarus. I haven't got super far in Kid Icarus. It's fine. I think I'll hold on to it for now, and we'll cut it if we have to do a second run. Star Tropics is great. So does Revenge. Less so, but still good. Joy Mech Fight is such an interesting game. An import. Probably the best fighting game on the system because it plays to the controller's strengths. I'll hold on to it for now. Devil World is charming, but I don't think mechanically it's that interesting. So I'll go ahead and cut that. Punch-Out and Ice Hockey are probably, out of all the sports stuff that's still on this list, and versus Excite Bike, those would be the three that I'm going to keep as representative of Nintendo sports efforts. I don't like pro wrestling that much. I don't like tennis that much. Golf is fine, but I think there's a better golf game on the system, so we'll just eliminate that too. Duck Hunt is great for what it is. It can stay in the first round. Popeye, I have affection for this game where I really shouldn't. I remember when I was a kid really wanting it, and then I actually have seen the arcade game, and I'm like, wow, this is such a downgrade. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. I'm fine with that. A Balloon Fight can stay. I've only really played the first Lolo, and this was when I was younger. And while I think its gameplay is perfectly fine, I remember being really frustrated by it, so I don't think it's going to make the cut. I'm going to leave all 6 Mega Man games for now, and then they can get into the second round of cuts. Gargoyle's Quest 2 is quite good. I'm going to go ahead and just grab Bionic Commando and put it over here since it is my favorite NES game, generally speaking. Willow, I think, deserves some consideration. Strider as well. Both of these games are really fascinating. Strider is definitely janky, and Willow has like some odd difficulty spikes and some it's not clear on what to do sometimes. But I think both of them do some really fascinating stuff that really push the boundaries of what the NES can do. Gunsmoke is not a favorite. I never got very far Destiny of an Emperor. I think it's a cool concept, but not one I would consider for a top 50. I would think Chip and Dale and DuckTales 1 are worth holding on to. DuckTales 2 was such a downgrade in my view. Visually, the music didn't feel as solid. It doesn't have the power that the original one had. So, cutting that out of there. Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior can stay. It's funny because I have played Dragon Quest 4 on the DS, but I have not really played 2, 3, or 4 on the NES, so I don't really have a strong opinion about those, but Dragon Warrior 1 I do. Rad Racer, I'm not a racing game fan. There's only one racing game on the NES that I like, and we're going to get to it, so I'm going to take both the Metal Gear games off. They're not fun for me, personally. They're kind of frustrating. Plus, I have my own personal reasons why I don't like Metal Gear. Ninja Turtles 2, I think, is a good consideration. Blades of Steel, absolutely. All 3 Castlevanias get to hang out up here. Kid Dracula, I think, is worth considering. Contra and Super C as well. I would also include Gradius. Twinbee is cute, but I don't think it's as memorable as its sequels that I've dabbled with. I don't really care for Adventure Island. Batman, Euphoria, Gimmick, Blaster Master, and Journey to Silius. Those are all great, and I want to consider them. Gremlins 2 is good, but it is not a top 50 for me. Out of the Taito items, Power Blade is definitely going to be up here, and Bubble Bobble as well. Demon Sword, I don't think we got the best version of that game. Natsume Atari, as they're known now. I think Scat is worth considering. I know it's not Scat, it's SCAT, but nobody calls it that. Shadow of the Ninja, I'm looking forward to the remake, because I think the original game is a little bit lacking. So I don't think it's a top 50 consideration. All right, we're down to these bottom 3 rows, and I think what I at least want to do is get to his top 60. So River City Ransom, for sure. I think Super Dodgeball, despite its programming issues that lead to horrible slowdown, is worth considering. Tecmo Bowl, for sure. RC Pro-Am. Monopoly, as odd as that sounds. We'll go ahead and give Ninja Gaiden, the original one. 2 I didn't like as much. Lee Trevino's Fighting Golf. Bad News Baseball, because it might be the best baseball game on the system. Double Dragon 2, Rygar. Put the Tecmo games together. Two more out of this bunch. I'm going to put Bugs Bunny up here because I like it, and I'm also going to grab Vice Project Doom because I think it's really interesting. So the rest of these games down here, I'm going to just go ahead and remove, and we'll come back with a zoomed in look at a top 60, and we'll get it down to 50. Top 60 now. Getting it down to 50. So I'm going to start with Nintendo. I think Wrecking Crew can be our first to leave this list. I'm going to go ahead and drop Kid Icarus as well. And I think Duck Hunt. Those will be my 3 cuts there. From Capcom, I think I'm going to stick with my 4 favorite Mega Man games on the system. So, original Mega Man and Mega Man 4 are eliminated, because I think these truly are the top of the Mega Man games. I think the rest of these are in consideration for a top 50. So, I'm just going to go ahead and scoot those all over. Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior, absolutely top 50 worthy. Pretty much everything Konami's on this list, except for Simon's Quest. But Bloody Tears is probably one of the best songs ever made, but unfortunately, I don't think the game attached to it is as interesting. Gradius, I think I'm going to cut as well. I don't think there's any Sunsoft stuff I want to get rid of. I don't think I want to get rid of either of the Taito games. Scat's probably fine. Three more. Bad News Baseball is really charming. That's what I remember. And the little bit I've goofed around with it in recent times is kind of affirmed that. But just because it's arguably the best baseball game doesn't mean that I like baseball games enough to put one in the top 50. Rygar I never got super far with. I'm just kind of impressed by it, but at the same time it's not my favorite. And then out of what's left, this is my personal list. Out of what's left, I think the thing that interests me the least is Punch-Out. And it's, for most people, top 10 game. And I understand why people would consider it a top 10 game. I'm just not very good at it, and I don't get very far in it. Rhythm-based stuff is not my jam. So, personally, it's like number 51. We are now at a top 50. These are unranked. My choices for the 50 best games on the platform. Granted, a couple of them are Japanese-only exclusives. And that would be Versus Excite Bike, Joy Mech Fight, and Euphoria and Gimmick, which only got released in English in Europe. But it's my list, and all of them actually have come out on North American platforms in recent times. Kid Dracula technically is as well, but it got localized with the Castlevania collection. So these are a really good set of games. I still want to do some more cutting. We got to get to a 25 best NES games, and we are double that. So I think what would probably help is to start actually ranking the top, and then just it'll by automatic elimination, we'll get to that 25. So, as stated at the top of this video, Bionic Commando is my personal favorite NES game of all time. Mega Man 3 is right behind it. And if my memory is correct, it goes Zelda. And Mario 3 and Kirby's Adventure are around here. Contra's like right there. Original Castlevania is not far behind it. And then like Mega Man 2. You know what's nice about having this here is I can confirm that. So you can see most of it, but it's kind of blown out for you at the moment. But Bionic Commando's right here. There's Mega Man 3. Then we get to Zelda here. Classic Zelda. And then Contra is actually my number 4. So I need to bump that up when I switch back. Then Mario 3. Then Castlevania OG. Then Kirby. And I want to say that's all of the ones that are on this list, and I want it to match the same order. Okay, so it was Zelda, then Contra, then Mario 3, then Castlevania, then Kirby, and then I didn't see Mega Man 2, so it's possible I cut that, or I just lost track of it. That's the problem with having so many games on a list. There's 2, so 2 is here after Kirby. Okay, so those top 8 are in the same order as they are on that list, which is good. That's the order they should be in. From there, I really like Power Blade. I really do. I replayed it recently. I loved it again. It brought back so many good memories of being a child again. Really, really great game. A very underrated one. 10th place. I am not good at this game, but I've recently really gotten into Gimmick. Just how in-depth its physics are for an NES game is absolutely phenomenal. It's got a great soundtrack. It's really freaking hard. But I really like it. I really like it a lot. I think it's Sunsoft's best NES game. And I think it's top 10 worthy. I really do. I think it's that good. I think Mega Man 6 might be my 11. I like it a little bit more than 5, but not by much. Blades of Steel and Ice Hockey are basically a tie. I think these are the greatest sports games ever made outside of International Superstar Soccer. I love these games, and I'm giving Blades of Steel the very slightest of edges because I think it does a little bit more, but it is so good. DuckTales will fall into number 14. I think that is another exceptionally good licensed game. And then Batman will be my number 15. Again, extremely hard game, but it just really is Sunsoft like swinging, and I love that. I will give Mario 2 the edge over OG Super Mario Brothers for number 16. This was the first game I ever bought, so I have some very strong sentimental value with it. And then I'm going to put Mega Man 5 here. I think it's a top 20. And I think OG Mario Brothers is right where it needs to be. I think it's also a top 20 game. Metroid can come right after it. Not as smooth or polished as the later games, but a very good foundation. And then out of the rest, I think Euphoria is probably number 20. In fact, I'm going to actually give Euphoria a little bit of an edge over Metroid because it does similar things as Metroid, but I think Euphoria does it slightly better. And I was goofing around with the Japanese Hebereke a bit today, actually, and was very pleasantly surprised at how much I was enjoying it. We got 5 more slots to fill. It's a pretty crowded arena with these 30 games all vying for those 5 spots. This is silly, but I think that the NES version of Monopoly is the best version of that game, bar none. No questions asked. I think I'm ultimately going to put it in 25, but I want it in this top 25 because I think it's worth including. Castlevania 3 is not my favorite. I wonder if it's even a top 10 Castlevania for me, but I do think it's a top 25 NES game, and I do think it deserves that spot, especially for its technical achievements. It's a great game. I just think that there's some level design stuff that they pulled off in there that makes it a lesser title for me. I'm giving the OG Star Tropics number 22. I think it's a very charming and original Nintendo game, only for North America at the time. It has some really mean moments and some really challenging gameplay, but I think that it really is a compelling title, for sure. Blaster Master can be 23. I think this is the game that really cemented Sunsoft as a top-tier developer for the system. A lot of their early stuff has a lot of misses. I think Blaster Master is where the hit ratio started getting much higher than the miss ratio. Let's do this. Let's get 6 contenders for this last slot. I think Balloon Fight is probably the best of the black box games outside of Super Mario Brothers. So I think it's got a pretty good odds. I think Final Fantasy's in consideration here. I think Super C is. I think Journey to Silius is. I think RC Pro-Am is. and I think Tecmo Bowl is. I think these are the 6 games that are going to fight for this 24 spot ahead of Monopoly. I think that feels right to me. These 6 games, I have played Final Fantasy the most. I have almost beaten Final Fantasy. I have a beef with Final Fantasy because I got to Chaos. I fought Chaos. I lost. I wanted to take a break. I turned it off. The battery didn't save, so I lost my entire playthrough. So, my desire to go through that game in the years since has not been there. And that, I think, is going to be the reason why it's not getting that last spot. I'm so sorry. Final Fantasy is an important game. It's the one I've gotten the closest out of the mainline series to beating, and yet, again, I find a way for Final Fantasy to not work out for me. Balloon Fight, I think, is a very charming game. But it's also a fairly simple one. And the simplest game that I think I've got on here are the 2 hockey games. I mean, executionally. In terms of being an arcade game, it is phenomenal. But I don't think it's better than the other 4 contenders. Tecmo Bowl. We've already got a couple other sports games up here. This is probably one of the best football games ever made. Super Bowl's probably better, but I've actually never played it. I spent a lot of time with this as a kid. It's got a lot of charm. It's got a great soundtrack. It still feels pretty good to play. But when I look at what's remaining, I don't think it's quite top 25 for me. RC Pro-Am, one of the best racing games on this system. At the moment, it is my personal favorite. And I have played it recently, and I like it. But I don't think it's better than the other 2 games on this list. It has some difficulty ramping that I don't really care for. And sometimes those turns are so tight that just trying to collect what you need to get your car upgraded is annoying. So it comes down to Super C and Dirty Decilious. And I'm going to tell you right now, Contra for me is so important of an NES game that I think Super C is a lesser game, and I have a bias against it. The fact that it actually got to this spot, I think, is really me being incredibly nice. Super C is a great game, but I think that it just is not as interesting, good looking, good sounding, good feeling as Contra is. While I can't say that Journey to Silius, I have that same problem. With Journey to Silius, it's got one of the greatest NES soundtracks of all time. The gameplay, while difficult, I think is manageable if you take your time. You don't have a time crunch. The gun system, which could have been implemented a little bit better with more upgrades to keep you using them instead of saving them for bosses, is fine. Visually, it's strong. Not as strong as some of the other games from Sunsoft on this list, but I think that it looks good. And I think it's just the one that's going to end up here. I think that that is my choice. That's my decision. Here we go. All of my personal favorites are here. And it took a little bit of elimination, but I think this is where I sit. My Sunsoft bias is definitely showing. as they had a really strong pull. 5 Sunsoft games. Is there even 5 Capcom games on this list? Yeah, there's 5. 6. Nintendo has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they have the most. Konami's got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I have more Sunsoft games on here than Konami games. Wild to think about. But I really feel like with some recent experience playing a few of these games for the first time, like Gimmick, I played really recently. Journey to Silius is relatively recently. Dracula's Curse proper has been fairly recently. And I've revisited like Power Blade, which was great. A little bit of Euphoria, which I played several years ago, but it's nice. It was a nice revisit. Yeah, I feel really good about this. All right. Thank you for joining me on that run through the NES library to get to a top 25. I feel really good about that list, having already edited the episode. I feel that it's pretty accurate. Although I have played Panic Restaurant since I recorded that, and that would be in the top 100. Certainly, it would probably be a top 50, to be honest. It's quite good. But I hadn't played it before I recorded the episode. So, just a little addendum. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow for episode 114. Take care.